Let's take a look at this problem. We got f of x is equal to 2x squared minus 4x minus 1. Instructions say to graph it, but first we're going to find all these other items. So find the x and y-intercepts. Okay, the x-intercepts. To find the x-intercepts, you always plug 0 in for the other variable, so plug 0 in for y, which in this case is f of x. So we got 0 is equal to 2x squared minus 4x minus 1. Now this does not appear to factor, so I'm going to use a quadratic formula. Now whatever number's in front of your x squared is your a, so that's 2. Whatever number's in front of your x is a negative 4, and whatever number's at the end is your negative 1 for your c. So then our quadratic formula is x equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. It's always a good idea to go through and replace all of your variables with parentheses before you plug in your numbers. This helps reduce sign errors. Okay, b we said was negative 4, so I'll plug negative 4 in for the b. A we said was 2, so plug 2 in for the A. And C we said was negative 1, so plug negative 1 in for the C. Now it gives us 4 plus or minus square root. Negative 4 squared is 16. Negative 4 times 2 is negative 8 times negative 1 is a positive 8. All over 2 times 2, which is 4. So we got 4 plus or minus square root. 16 plus 8 is 24. Over 4. Now you should always simplify your radicals before you go on. So we got 4 plus or minus square root. 24 is 2, 4, 8 times 3, if I do the prime factorization, over 4. Now we're looking for pairs of something when we're talking about square roots. Here's a pair of 2's. So this pair of 2's is going to come out in front as a single 2. So we got x equal to 4 plus or minus 2 square root of 2 times 3, which is 6, over 4. Now the 3 number rule. If you can divide this number and this number and this number by the same number, do so. Those are all divisible by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2 plus or minus 2 divided by 2 is 1 square root of 6 over 2. Or x is equal to 2 plus or minus square root of 6 over 2. So our x-intercept would be 2 plus square root of 6 over 2, comma 0, and 2 minus square root of 6 over 2, comma 0. Now our y-intercept. You always plug 0 in for the other variable, so I'll plug 0 in for x. So I'm going to have y is equal to 2 times 0 squared minus 4 times 0 minus 1, or y is equal to negative 1. And that point would be 0, negative 1. If it's given in general form, convert it to standard form. If it's given in standard form, convert it to general form. This is given in general form. So we've got f of x is equal to 2x squared minus 4x minus 1. Now, these steps aren't necessarily that simple, so let me write out the steps. So as this comes up, okay, so these are quadratic functions converting from general form to standard form. And as I'm typing these steps out, I'm going to go ahead and do them. So step 1, factor out the, and this is assuming it's in standard, in your general form, sorry. Factor out the number in front of the x squared from the first 2 terms. Okay. So for this here, the number that's in front of our x squared is 2. So I'm going to factor that out from the first two terms. And that gives us x squared minus 2x. Now notice I don't touch the last term at all. Step 2, take the number in front of the x, including a sign, multiply it by 1/2, square it, and both add and subtract that number inside the parentheses. Okay. Take the number in front of the x. Number in front of x is a -2. You multiply it times 1/2 and you square it. -2 times 1/2 is -1, and -1 squared is a +1. And I said that you both add and subtract that number inside the parentheses. So we got 2 times x squared minus 2x plus 1 minus 1, and then that minus 1 carries down there. Now, when we do that, we have to think of this as the first three terms grouped together and last term grouped together. Okay. So step 3. Factor the first group, the first three terms inside the parentheses. So this factors, I'm going to change that to a bracket. This factors as x minus 1 squared, and that minus 1 carries down, and that minus 1 carries down. Now again, the trick to that is whatever number's right here, right before you square it, is always what goes right here, sign included. Then 4, multiply the number out in front by both groups. So we're going to take this number that's out in front here, this 2, and multiply it times our first group here and our second group. Our second group is just that single number. So we got 2 times x minus 1 squared, 2 times -1 minus 1. Okay, so then we've got 2 times x minus 1 squared, 2 times -1 is -2 minus 1, which gives us 2 times x minus 1 squared minus 3. And that's our standard form. Now the beauty of standard form is we can easily identify some items. Whatever number's in front of your parentheses is your a, so a is 2, which means our graph opens up. Whatever number's inside of your x is your h, and it's going to always be opposite sign, so h is 1. And your number at the end is your k, so k is equal to -3. Next thing they're asking for is the vertex, which is hk, which would be 1, -3. And then they're asking us for the axis symmetry. It will be x equals h, and h we said was 1, so we're going to have x equals 1. Now since our graph opens up, that means it has a low point, which means it's going to have a min, absolute min, and relative min, and that's going to be equal to k, which was -3. Sometimes they write that in point form. In point form, it'd be the same as your vertex. Okay, so now I'm going to show how to find the vertex just using the vertex formula. Because that's kind of challenging to put that in the standard form. Not all students get that. Okay, so if I got my f of x equal 2x squared minus 4x minus 1. Our vertex formula. First thing we want to do is step 1 is to identify A and B. A is whatever number's in front of your x squared, which is 2. B is whatever number's in front of your x, which is a negative 4. Step 2 is plug the values you identified in step 1 into negative b over 2a and simplify. So we're going to have negative 4. We'll plug negative 4 in for the b over 2 times a, which is 2. Now, negative gives us a positive 4. 2 times 2 is 4, and that gives us 1. And notice that's equal the x part of our vertex. Step 3. Plug the value from step 2 into the original function and simplify. So I got 2 times 1 squared minus 4 times 1 minus 1. 1 squared is 1 times 2 is 2 minus 4 minus 1. 2 minus 4 is negative 2 minus 1 is negative 3. Notice how that matches the y part of our vertex. So using the vertex formula, you can see we can very easily find 1, negative 3. We can find the same thing we did over here, going through and converting all that. Okay, our domain. That's easy. Domain for quadratics is always negative infinity, positive infinity. Now our range is based upon whether the graph opens up or opens down. We can see our graph opens up because a is positive, which means it's going to positive infinity. So I'm going to start with the y part of my vertex, which is negative 3, and it's going to go up to positive infinity. Now I can see that my graph initially is decreasing. So it's decreasing from negative infinity, and it stops decreasing at the x part of my vertex, which is 1. And then my graph is increasing. And it goes from 1 to positive infinity. Okay, see our graph's opening up. Vertex is 1, negative 3. So 1, 2, 3. 1, negative 3 is right there. That's my vertex. Let me see. What do I got that's useful? Y-intercept is 0, negative 1. 0, negative 1 would be right here. That's my y-intercept. Decimals radicals don't usually help us, like this x-intercepts we see up here, unless I plug them in the calculator. But I'm trying to show these without using the calculator at all. Okay, so then our axis symmetry is x equals 1. Which should be a vertical line at that number. Now we need one more point. So I'm going to come over here, maybe at negative 1. And I'm going to plug that back into my original function. And here was my original function. So I'm going to have y is equal to 2 times negative 1 squared minus 4 times negative 1 minus 1. Negative 1 squared is 1 times 2 is 2. Negative 4 times negative 1 is a positive 4 minus 1. 2 plus 4 is 6 minus 1 is 5. So that would be the point, negative 1, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Negative 1, 5, somewhere right there. Now after you got your vertex and 2 points, you pretty well have what the graph looks like. So it's going to go up like this. It's got a curve to it. Now axis symmetry means it's symmetric this line. So after you get one side, you can flip it over, and that gives you your other side. More or less. And that'd be our graph. As good as I can sketch it by hand, that is.